Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his Sunday expert and part of the $100 million club, Mr. Todd Baldwin. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, and it feels awesome to be part of the $100 million club. That has a nice ring to it.
I like that. May have to get a plaque or something behind me just to highlight for people that one rental at a time. YouTube is different. We bring on other experts such as yourself to talk about what you do, and you do really, really well. So thank you for being a part of the family.
Absolutely.
So what I want to talk about here is I had some quiet time yesterday. If you don't know, if you don't follow my daily financial news, I got to sit with my accountant yesterday, which means it's a lot of sitting because I'm answering questions and we're going through things, but there's a lot of time for me to think and be quiet, which is what I do there. And I now realize that the media, and for a lot of this, me repeating the media is wrong. Tell me if you heard this before, Todd. We have an inventory or supply problem in the real estate market. We have 800,000 listings or 230,000 homes or whatever metric it is, all-time low going on, and it's all supply, supply, supply. We have a supply problem. Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah.
That's wrong. That's wrong. We don't have a supply problem. We have a demand problem. How can I say that now with ultimate confidence? Well, Todd, if we truly had a supply problem, you know what would be a show of that? Transactions. Transactions in 2021 or early 22 would be lower than the previous years. Because if you don't have supply, total transactions has to go down, right?
Yes.
Guess what? Supply is just fine. Our transactions are the same or higher than 2019, 2020. So I want to tell you right here, right now, we do not have a supply problem. We just don't. You may not like it. There may be nothing for sale, but it is not a supply problem. It is instead a demand problem. And this is a demand problem that starts with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve took money, basically created free money. Our government has pumped trillions of dollars into the economy, free money. We have allowed people to move and sell homes in California and move to cheaper areas and thus take up prices in those areas higher because of money. So instead of saying we have a supply problem, folks, let's just recognize what is true. We have a demand problem. And you know how I can say that with certainty? Not because of transactions, which clearly pointed out, but days on market. Our days on market matches transactions. So we are still executing as many transactions. It's just days on market now is something like 13 and a half days. That is the average across America. So again, we have a demand problem, not a supply problem. Does that make sense, or am I missing something?
I think it does make sense. And I think you're right that the media gets everything wrong. Let's be real. The media is often wrong about most things. And by the way, it doesn't matter which one you watch, whether it's CNN or Fox News, they're both all wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, the federal government did something that they thought was a good idea, and they printed money. And they also put in place an eviction moratorium, meaning renters could not pay rent and you couldn't evict them. What happened was a lot of small mom and pop landlords who don't have an army of lawyers on their side got screwed because they were missing 8, 9, 10 months of rent. Then they did the only thing they could do, and they sold their houses. And Wall Street bought about 20% of them. So companies like BlackRock bought 1 in every 5 houses being sold. So now about 20% of the houses that were sold are now with Wall Street. They are not letting anyone live there rent-free, by the way, with their army of lawyers. They were getting you out. No question. They would rather have a vacant home than have a delinquent tenant. And now prices are through the roof, and Wall Street owns 20% of them. And if you're guys like us, then we're actually doing great because all of our houses skyrocketed in value. If you're a first-time home buyer, you're probably really scared because you might be paying an inflated price, or you might not see something there. You might have too much competition, whatever. But yeah, it's really unfortunate what happened, and it was completely avoidable with what they should have done versus what they actually did do.
Yeah. So now that we've admitted it's a demand problem, not a supply problem, let's talk about the rest of 2022. So how do you dent demand? Well, first and foremost, you've got to get the Fed out of the way, and we've got to get back to what I'll call neutral or floor rates. 30-year money sub 3% is not normal. I know you wish you had it. I hope you got some, but it is, just admit it, nobody should be able to borrow 30 years at 2.75%. That is asinine. It's just not, I mean, that's crazy.
It's pretty awesome though, if you got it.
Yeah, if you got it. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. I hope you got a lot of it, but let's just admit that that's not normal. I believe 30-year money needs to get back to 5% for owner occupants, which means that it's got to be 6% for investors.
Really?
So, yeah, that's where I think it's got to get to. So it's already over 4 for owner occ, 4.07. Investors are about 5. So we've come about halfway, maybe 60%. There's still more to go. Who knows how soon we'll get there, but I think that's where it goes. So higher rates will dent demand. So what will happen? Well, if demand gets dented, days on market extends. The longer days on market goes, inventory will build. And yes, folks, we will finally see a real estate slowdown. We should not have another year of high double-digit appreciation. Let me just tell you, where from a guy who owns some homes, that's not healthy. It's just flat out not healthy. We've got to see that slow down, and that's what I'm calling for. And yes, we will have some markets, I'm thinking Boise, Idaho, that actually could go negative. You had a flush of soft Californians just experienced the worst winter in Boise, and some of them are bouncing out. They may not come back to California, but they're going to go to Phoenix or Vegas or Texas or Florida, just where you don't have real seasons. So demand needs to be dented. And unfortunately, that means owner occupants, it's going to be more expensive because it's not only the value, but it's the rate. And that's why I feel bad for a lot of people that listened to crash videos last year. You missed out on appreciation, but you really missed out on 30 years of just unbelievable kind of sub 3%. So again, do the work. I think inventory builds by the summer and builds throughout the rest of the year. Appreciation's probably in the high single digits, not double digits. And the real estate market has to slow down. And oh, by the way, rent has to slow down. People can't continue to see 20% rent growth. Florida and Texas, 30%. Not healthy, not normal. And some of that's because, again, mom and pop sold out. Wall Street bought. And you got to believe Wall Street's going to go get maximum rent. So I think a lot of this was created by horrible and bad policy. And now it's time to pay the piper. And unfortunately, there's going to be less affordable rentals, and Wall Street's going to own more stuff. What do you think?
Absolutely. Wall Street's buying up a bunch of stuff, and the government, frankly, made it all possible because mom and pop landlords were strapped and backed into a corner. It's just a mess. I think, it's really unfortunate. I feel for first-time home buyers. I feel for mom and pop landlords who got squeezed out. And I feel for tenants who are responsible, making their payments on time and now have 20, 30% rent hikes. I mean, how are they ever going to dig themselves out and buy a place of their own? It's just, it's crazy. And I don't know how sustainable it is. Something's got to give. And I think you're probably right. The interest rates will go up, and you don't necessarily think prices will fall when interest rates rise. You think they're going to stay?
Well, I think again, we can talk nationally, right? Nationally speaking, I suspect home prices are up a point or two above whatever inflation is. And that's the historical norm. I mean, if you go back and look at 50 years, which I have, housing's about 1 or 2% above inflation. Because again, it's a payment-based thing, right? So when your wages go up 5%, you can afford more house, right? Or more house payment. So yeah, I do not see housing correcting or crashing this year. It will be a positive number. There will be spots, i.e. Boise, that could go negative, but no, nationally, not happening.
Yeah, interesting. It's
Do you disagree? Are you calling for a housing crash?
No, oh no, I'm not one of those. Yeah, I see those YouTube videos too, and I cringe every time I see them, and they all get like 500,000 views, and people aren't. I got an investor rate either last year or the year before, I don't remember, for 3.3%.
Wow.
30-year money in investment home, 3.3%.
Never pay that off.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's basically free money at that point. I mean, the inflation rate at the time was like 6%. So
again, we have negative rates. People don't get that. Is the U.S. going to have negative rates? Folks, we have negative rates. If you can borrow at 3.3 and inflation is 6, do the math. That's negative 2.7.
Yep.
This is why the Fed did this. Now, the Fed may have had to do some of this, but they stayed at the party too long. They have been they've been at the party too long. There's too much alcohol, too much drugs. Now, when they rip them away, people are still addicted. And 2022 is just going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess.
Oh, yeah. Well, in Seattle, one of the council members, very openly socialist council member, wanted to extend the eviction moratorium until the end of the global health crisis, which who knows how long that will be.
Yeah.
But what she doesn't understand is if that happens, anyone who's in a mom and pop owned property, they will sell to Wall Street.
Absolutely.
And then Wall Street, they don't give a crap. They're going to kick those people out. They will find a way through some legal loophole or through lobbying or whatever. And it's like those people are going to end up homeless, and the mom and pop folks are no longer going to own the property. And it's not going to be as nice when Wall Street owns it. So I think anytime the government thinks they're helping out, it's like, oh, dude, just stop. Just please don't.
Yeah. Just like rent control, just like any other things. When the government is here to help, you should be scared. They're going to help for a moment, but there will be so many unintended consequences. What they're doing basically with that eviction moratorium is they took, I don't know, 10 or 20% of mom and pop landlords. And basically what they said is, okay, the real estate market is hot. I'm going to kick my tenants out because it is my home and I have the right to upgrade it, because that's always been one of the reasons you can get them out.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get them out. They're going to upgrade it. They're going to sell it. Maybe you're lucky and an owner occupant buys it, or Wall Street buys it because they buy 1 in 10 or 1 in 5 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is and guess what? The party's over. Time to pay up. It's happening right now, and yeah, it's not fun to watch.
No.
Very cool. Well, thank you for having this discussion. Folks, stop saying, and if you hear me say it, put a comment below. We do not have a supply problem. We have a demand problem, and it lands at the feet of the Fed. Jerome Powell, raise rates, buddy. Raise rates a half, get the party over. Let's have a little bit of pain so that we can get back to normal. Todd, how can people find you?
Yes. If you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's at Todd J. Baldwin. And if you want to check out my YouTube, it's just my name, Todd Baldwin.
Thanks, buddy.